Okay, well, that's what you're going to do.
Perfect.
Okay. Whoops, and I just hit it, I think.
When you're ready, what time is it?
3:30. 3:31.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you want to hit start broadcast.
1 sec. Once.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Right here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We have a great turnout for our first leadership series for our first robotics competition teams. We have a full agenda this afternoon. With us, I'm Erin McCallum, and then we have our communications coordinator, Kelly Essig, and then we are in for a real treat with two of our FRC teams, Bainbridge Island Spartronics, with team representatives Aaliyah, John, and Colin presenting, and Glacier Peak Sonic Squirrels, Aaliyah and Emily presenting to talk about the ABCs for all first teams: advocacy, branding, and communications. We will have this presentation up on firstwa.org by tomorrow, and we are also recording it so that this becomes a point of reference for you and your team members who are unable to attend today. We also have a question box, and Adrian and Kelly are going to monitor the questions. We ask for you to type in questions, but be a little flexible in getting responses to those questions, just because this is our inaugural leadership series, and we want to make sure that all of the speakers have the opportunity for their material. Okay, so let's begin. So first, as you all know, is a program that covers all four programs, kindergarten through 12th grade, ages 6 to 18 years of age. We believe it is really important for the power of co-branding of your teams, and with the national organization Washington First Robotics, Oregon First Robotics. So feel free to use any of these slides as they become available online for tomorrow. Washington First Robotics, which is for those of you teams from Oregon, I apologize, but Washington First Robotics is the facilitator for the Pacific Northwest District. So we share this kind of information a lot with funders and work to develop a presentation for Oregon as well. But it is the nonprofit that supports the over 11,000 youth that are comprised of 975 teams, which are supported by over 5,000 adult coaches and mentors, and an additional over 1,300 volunteers who help run these events across Washington State and Oregon for all four programs. Our agenda this afternoon is really to talk about the fundamental ABCs. All of our teams do a really, really fantastic job in building and programming robots and have a fantastic time in practicing and learning gracious professionalism, both at your team and through competitions. What we have not done a particularly strong job in terms of talking and coaching and supporting teams is the ABCs, which we refer to as advocacy, branding, and communications. So let me spend a couple of minutes on advocacy, and then we will pass the baton over to the Sonic Squirrels to talk about branding, and then Spartronics will wrap up with communications. So first of all, the definitions of advocacy, branding, and communication is you can read for yourself, but we believe these are the fundamentals in establishing a clear sense of communication to the general public who has never heard of FIRST. They may or may not have heard about a robotics team, whether it's a high school team or a 4-H team, and they don't fully understand how large this ecosystem is in the Pacific Northwest and the power this ecosystem has and strength in exciting young people towards STEM pathways. So advocacy, why are these important? What it is in terms of the bottom line for all of you is it is about recruiting more young people to your team, recruiting mentors to support your team to give their time and area of expertise, raise support for your team, raise funds for your team, and amplifying the role and benefits of FIRST. So couple of, next slide, advocacy, why should we do it and why should we care? It's a competitive world out there, as we all know. Just in Washington State alone, there are over 3,000 nonprofit organizations that are out there advocating for their mission and their support of their programs. They're asking for people to give of their time, of their financial treasure, and of their expertise. So if we don't do this, then who? Well, there isn't a who. It is up to us, and us, I mean 975 teams, and we have a significant voice if we organize ourselves and empower ourselves. And finally, we must keep the message clear and simple. This is something that the national organization, FIRST, is really working to make some inroads on, and there are some exciting new developments that are going to be rolled out over the next 30 days to simplify the FIRST message, simplify message and communication in social media, in websites, in media releases, and Kelly and I look forward to working with all of you in developing some templates, really easy to use templates that you can access online and complement already the good work that you have done. So some best practices of advocacy. Start with creating a list of your elected officials. And by that, I mean your local elected officials from city council to county council to school board, your state lawmakers, and your members of Congress. Secondly, create a list of community leaders and influencers. Every single community has leaders and influencers, and they take many different shapes and forms. They may not just be business people. They may be people that are really involved in social activities, places of worship, different clubs or organizations. It might even be your school principal or your basketball coach or football coach. And for goodness sakes, it certainly is your FIRST mentors. Get to know who these people are by communicating with them and developing an outreach plan where you begin to educate them about FIRST and your team and all of the cool things that you're doing throughout the year. The second step is allow Washington FIRST Robotics to develop and take the lead on some big advocacy efforts where it is important that we have careful and succinct communication. And by that, and a perfect example is the efforts that Washington State teams did late last fall and early in 2015 in working with us in securing funds for the Washington State Legislature. I know Oregon has done things similar, but it is really important to have a clear and simple message and recognize that by advocating that message, it benefits all teams, not just one team or a few. Okay? So now I want to pass the baton on to Sonic Squirrels and have them talk a bit about the branding efforts. Ladies?
So hello. Hi, I'm Emily.
I'm Aaliyah.
And we are from the FRC team 2930, the Sonic Squirrels, and we are here to talk to you about branding first and your FIRST team.
Go ahead and go to the next slide. So when you're considering what kind of brand you want, you really have to be consistent with your brand because you want every aspect of your team and of your brand to be you. You don't want to have some parts of your brand mistaken for other teams or for people to think that you're two different teams. You also want the perception of your brand to be what you want it to be. So you don't want people to maybe misinterpret it or be offended by it. So you really have to make sure that your brand can only be interpreted in one way, and that's the way you want it to be interpreted. And a really big and part of that is market research. So you test your ideas by going out and identifying who your audiences are. So is your audience sponsors? Is it kids in your area? Is it just FRC community? And think, okay, what do they think that a robotics team is going to be? How do they see us? How do we want to be seen? And figure out a theme that will work for that. You also want your logo to be versatile, so it can work in different kinds of media, so it looks good big on a t-shirt as well as small on a button and on business cards. Go ahead and go. Thank you. So your goals for names and theme is you want to be unique, creative, and recognizable so that when you're at a competition, people know it's you. And you also want them to know that you're part of FIRST. So with your theme and logo, you want them to be similar to each other so that you know when you see the logo that is your theme, and when you see the theme, you should be able to think of the logo. So you want them to be cohesive. You also want your theme to be distinctive, especially on the local level, so that there is something very distinct that your local community can vote for. So like for us, it's Go Squirrels. There's definitely something that everyone can vote for in our community. You want your imagery to stand out and to be unique to the team. And so when people think of your team, they should know what you look like, and they should, when they look out in the stands, they should be able to find you because they know what you look like and you stand out from other teams. You also want your team members to be easily recognizable based on the team name. So if someone brand new comes to a competition and they're like, I'm looking for the Sonic Squirrels, they should be able to look around and find that team because they know what that team kind of looks like just by thinking of the name. So you want it to be logical, that the name follows the theme and the look. And your mascot should also tie in with the theme name, or with the team name and the theme, so that when your mascot's down in the mascot parade, maybe not with the member, people can see your mascot and know, okay, that's that team's mascot. And you also want your mascot to be kid-friendly so that little kids aren't quite as scared of it when you're trying to get pictures of them together. You can go ahead and go on.
So you have to think about when you're making a brand new team or recreating your team, what will be seen? And you have to think, well, what are we going to wear? Are we going to wear something that's popping in color and that has many different aspects like hats, if there's going to be any hats, how they would look? And you have to think, well, if my team can't be wearing our shirts, like when you're volunteering for an FRC team or an FLL game, you can think, well, what can they wear that they can be seen as, this is my team? And you have to be able to have a clear idea of what your pit is going to look like. Is it going to be a representation of who you are, and how will that look? And will there be different outfits? Like, is there going to be a rock and cool one for your pit when you're presenting to judges and cheering in the stands? Or is there going to be a different one for when you're presenting to big name company, and how are you going to be seen to them and by others? And you have to think, well, what will my mascot be? How can we get this mascot? And you have to think, is this a plausible mascot to have, to wear, and does this work for my team? And you have to think, well, I have this great idea, but what will we give away? Because you have to think, well, we can give away buttons. Is there any other cool things that we can give up? Like, we give out really cool necklaces with rock and roll guitars that are easy to get and easy to distribute. Next slide, please. And you have to think, well, maybe I have a good brand, but something's missing. So you have to be able to identify which brand elements do I personally like, does your team like, does your school like? And you have to be thinking, well, what can we add to make this team? Will adding a mascot make it better? And what kind of mascot will make it more recognizable? Or is it simply just making a more consistent logo that says, hey, that's who we are, it's easy to read from a distance, and just a better look for your team. And you have to be thinking, well, what I like could be very different than what others like. So say you go to a different team and say, what do you think of when I say our team name? Do you think of our mascot, our colors? I mean, what do you think of? And you have to always remember to put first on your materials. You have to be able to say, in the distance, that is a first team.
So we also wanted to talk a little bit about how the process we went through from going from the theater bots to our current team, the Sonic Squirrels. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the steps we took is we thought it would be really important to get student input, because if your students aren't very involved in it, they may not be as, invested in it. And you want the students to be invested so they put their energy into it and they believe in your team so that they can be more excited about it. So one way that we did that is that we had students come up with different brand ideas and proposals and different aspects of the theme. So like coming up with pit ideas. It was a very involved process with all of our students. And we also had them give feedback to the different ideas that other students and people came up with. We also wanted majority buy-in so that before we made any final decision, we made sure that a majority of our team liked it and would support it. You also want to get approval from your school or your other higher body if you're not associated with a school. So you may have to go through your teacher advisor to make sure this is appropriate for our organization. And it's also nice to present to the higher body at your organization. So like the principal, or if you're with an organization, the president of that organization, because you want them to feel involved and you want them to know what's going on. And also a big part of that is market research. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but one thing that we did specifically is we talked to our feeder JFLL, FLL, and FTC teams. So we went to them and said, would you like to be on this team when you get to high school? And we talked to them about more than one team name that we'd come up with. So we had a couple final ones that we were like, okay, these are a good range of different team names, and so we asked them about the different ones. Which one were they more excited about to become when they were a high schooler and things like that. We also went to other local FRC teams and we're saying, what do you think about this as a robotics team? Would you respect this team at a competition? Do you think it'd be fun? Would you dance with them down in the mosh pit? Things like that. We also talked to First Watch staff and volunteers, just kind of saying, do you think this would look cool? Do you understand kind of what we were going at with this t-shirt and those kind of things? And team families also had a really big impact on our theme when we were coming up with it. So we talked to parents. We said, hey, do you like this? Would you get behind this? Would you wear this t-shirt? And those kind of things. So you can move on to the next slide. So this is our marketing proposal. We're not going to go through it right now, but it'll be in the PowerPoint for when it's published, so you guys can go back and use it if you guys want to use it.
Okay, so you have to always remember, put first on your shirts. Put first somewhere that can be seen, somewhere that you will see it. And this makes people think, well, you know what, maybe I don't. This always helps you legitimize your team, and it makes it innovative, impactful, well-established, and it also shows that you have this whole global community, that you're really not just one element. You are one element in a huge, big thing. And this assists in fundraising. It inspires mentors, sponsors, and other volunteers to always get involved with some element of FIRST. And it also builds a stronger family of FIRST programs to fill your team's pipeline. Like maybe you don't recruit to just your team. You recruit to your elementary schools that will feed into you for junior FLL, FLL, and FTC. You're helping FIRST as a whole. And you always have to make sure you have thoughtful co-branding that ensures the maintenance of the brand integrity. Oh, next slide. And you always need to make sure that you have the right brand name to be shown. And you have to always make sure that your media standards are the same as FIRST is. And you can always find them at the FIRST website. And this also helps, as I said, to make FIRST seem like this huge, big thing. And so you have to always remember, put it on everything that will be seen to the public. And it highlights the benefits of being part of this whole global community called FIRST. And it states that, you know, this organization, hey, we're just in Washington. And you also remember it's a global thing.
Thank you, Erin and Sonic Squirrels, for those fabulous messages. Hi, everyone. My name is Isla Ikuse, and I am head marketer of Smartronics Team 4915. And today we're going to be going through some steps of communication that are key to your team being a success. And I want to turn it over to Jonathan.
Hi, my name is John Coonan. I'm another marketer on Smartronics 4915. And today I'm going to talk about the 4 steps to marketing success. Our first step is to develop your message and determine what your story is. A good exercise is to do an elevator speech, something that you can describe your team and its mission in 30 seconds or less. This is something that everybody on the team should be able to do. It's great for judges, as if somebody asks, hey, what team are you on? You can give them a brief description of your team in detail. And even if you aren't a marketer, it's great, so that way you can just tell other people about your team. We have a phrase here that everybody's a marketer. Everybody should be able to tell other people what team they're on, why their team is better than other ones. Another important thing is to differentiate. What makes your team unique? How did your team begin? What hardships do you have? Are great places to start for this. Other things are specialties of your community or of the area and how you can own those. Next slide, please. Thank you. Step 2 is to tell your story. There's tons of ways you can do this. You obviously can have a website. There's tons of ways you can do that, but WordPress is a great, easy tool that's also free and open source. For email, you can use MailChimp for newsletters, which allow you to have HTML5 coded newsletters that look great, have wonderful pictures, colors, backgrounds, fonts, whatever. They look wonderful. And those can go out to anybody on the team and the people who aren't on the team, like sponsors. Sorry, and other supporters such as family members. Social media is also good for contacting people. Facebook is especially useful for the parents and community. Those are the people who are maybe the parents of team members or just general community members, and also sponsors too. The Instagram is especially useful for students and other teams. Funnily enough, our new principal, Mr. Fish, actually found out about our team through our Instagram and not through us telling him about the team. And Twitter is especially useful for sponsors and just general supporters as well, since a lot of companies have, have Twitter pages. You obviously can also have stickers, T-shirts, giveaways, things like that to help people know who you are. Step 3 is to sell your story. Let your local news media know what you're doing. Anybody on the schools area, from school newspapers, radio programs, anything else that's put up by the school is really great because that goes out to all the parents, and generally they check it. Local blogs and news websites are also useful for connecting with new community members, and also just connecting to those who still haven't heard your message yet. And of course, local newspapers and magazines are good for just general area coverage. Nothing specific, but you might find a couple new people through there, and the ones who already know about you will be happy to follow along. And the most important message is to leverage the news that already goes. You should share with everybody. Everybody should know that you got an article in the paper. That stuff is worth more than gold. Step 4 is to share your story. Always, for everything, just keep your sponsors in the loop. This can include school people, students, teachers, anybody there, the parents, of course, and your actual business sponsors, people who have given you money. Those people want to know where it's going. The political leaders in the area, too, might show some interest. Them supporting things like this is almost generally accepted for all reasons, regardless of their beliefs. So it's good for them to know about it. They might start talking about you. And since those are all 4 of my steps, I'm going to pass it along to Isla with her case study of the events.
Right. So last year, one of our team members, Tarkan, noticed that April 9th, 2015 was a very special date. April 9th, 2015 spells out the date 4915, or our team number. And so we use this day as a celebration of the first message. We took over the island by stationing ourselves at all the central gathering areas, at the pavilion, at Linwood Center, at the Safeway, at the ferry terminal. We also gave out information about STEM and FIRST, and we also turned into a fundraiser for Spartronics. And so how did we do this? Well, first, marketing came up with a game plan, and we planned all the logistics, and we brought the team together, and we coordinated the staging of this. We approached City Hall, and 4915 was declared Spartronics Day by the City Council, and we had the team turn out for the official declaration by the mayor in front of the City Council. We also had a skit prepared for school assembly that day, and for 49 minutes and 15 seconds, we promoted Spartronics Day in person. We talked to everyone who walked by. Many of them expressed support and excitement over where our team was headed, including FLL. So we got sponsors involved in this as well. Inside Bainbridge, our media sponsor, allowed us to take over their Facebook page for the day, and we also were able to raise a lot of funds online as well. So the outcome of this is that we raised over $2,000, and that money allowed us to go to Worlds and to establish 4 FLL teams on the island who will compete in an FLL event that we are hosting in December. So these pictures here show us in Safeway and at Linwood Center talking to people who are supportive in the community. All right, and I'm going to introduce Colin. He is a marketer on our team, and he will be talking about including FIRST in our communications.
Hello, I'm Colin. I've been a part of Spartronics since its roots back in aerial assist days. And so I'm going to talk about how you communicate your connection to FIRST and about FIRST. Well, FIRST really gives your team legitimacy. It establishes your high value and your importance on a global scale. It's not just about establishing yourself in your own local district like typically a lot of Washington teams do. It's about connecting to other teams that are across the country and across the world, because there's many, many, many more FIRST teams outside of Washington. And it's really important to really, show that you exist and that you are a noteworthy team. And it's really essential to include the FIRST messages and the FIRST story and the FIRST brand, their logo, on everything, in everything you do and on everything you wear, especially your team shirt. It's in everything you do. You gotta, it's very important. So some of the core messages behind FIRST is that FIRST is a community where everyone's skills are celebrated. You can come from pretty much anywhere with any sort of background experience, not only in STEM-related subjects, but things like graphic design, marketing. Knowing even how to talk is a big deal. Being able to memorize things. If you have pretty much any special talent, you can use that talent on a FIRST robotics team, and it will be celebrated within the team. It doesn't matter where you come from. FIRST also levels the playing field for all. It engages them in the sport of science. Robotics isn't just a club. It isn't just this little thing that you do after school. It's really it's truly a sport, because there's so much teamwork. You have to use technology to your advantage. You have to work together. You have to communicate. It's a really big deal to recognize that FIRST and your robotics team is a sport. And another huge principle is that FIRST is helping you learn these important STEM skills that you need for college and for your future careers. Because when I have applied to colleges and I've talked to college professors about, hey, I was a part of FIRST robotics, they were really impressed with that fact, because it showed that I was a part of something that wasn't just an after-school activity. I was a part of a true team. I was a part of a true community that taught amazing STEM skills and allowed me to really succeed in the field that I was pursuing. And I think one of the biggest things to take away is that you always got to discuss the key principles of FIRST, which are the two terms, cooperation and gracious professionalism. Cooperation is a fusion of the two words, cooperation and competition. Cooperation means, you have to cooperate with other teams, work together, and generally support each other. But you also are competing with them at the same time, and you got to exemplify this resource not only during the competition, but also during the build season when you are talking to other teams or asking them for help. And gracious professionalism also kind of ties into that, because gracious professionalism, as you may know, is basically regardless of whichever team you're competing against or you're near, you will be willing to help them because it is the right thing to do, and it exemplifies the whole idea that no matter where some team comes from, or if you're playing against them in the next match, it's always the right thing to do is to help them out and do what's right. And I think next slide. I think another huge thing is thinking outside of the box. Thinking outside of the box is probably the biggest thing when you're communicating the idea that we are more than just robots. We did videos for YouTube. We did sponsor pitches. I was actually a part of some of the first sponsor pitch videos where we made these personalized videos towards our sponsors to help inform them what FIRST and what robotics is. We made videos for sub-teen dance challenges. We did mini documentaries on last year's Girls' Generation. One of our biggest, I think, the biggest thinking outside of the box ideas that Isla talked about earlier was have a day named for your team by your city or city council. We had this, basically, as we talked about earlier, our mayor helped us declare that the 9th of April 2015 was Spartronics Day. Big deal. We have a picture of it actually on the slide currently. We also held an open house for our community. And so this open house was really great because we were expecting maybe, a couple parents to show up, just come and support, their kids that are actually in the program. But there was a much larger impact, a huge impact. We thought maybe, 13, 20 people. We had over 300 community members come and see what we did. And that just totally blew us away as a team. And another really creative idea is that we really embodied is the whole idea of the team member ID badges. We kind of started this even in our first year near World Championships. And so it allows, not only during the competition, but during the build season, for other students to learn each other's names. And as well, during the competition, other robotics teams, it makes you much more approachable and easier to talk to and introduce yourself because they're like, oh, that's a really cool name badge. And sometimes it might be flipped the wrong way, so you can always start a conversation like, oh, this is my name. What team are you from? And so that's one of the biggest ideas behind the team member ID badges is to really help break the ice. Next slide. So here, this is relating to our first open house. This is actually a cartoon drawn by our governor, Jay Inslee. Now, the story behind this one is we originally invited Jay Inslee, who is a former Bainbridge Islander, to come to our open house. But since he is the governor, kind of just a little busy. So he ended up sending us this really cool little cartoon showing that he wanted to support us, but he couldn't make it. So I think that's one of the coolest things about just trying to reach out to not only your community members, but also to people in government and legislature and other things like that. Next slide. You also, one of the most important things behind FIRST is you got to have fun. It's not just about building robots. It's also building relationships with your team and other teams. I mean, here we have pictures of our, we have other students just having a good time at competitions during the build season and at off-season events. Next slide.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for listening, and back to Aaron.
Thanks, Spartronics and Sonic Squirrels. Great job and excellent job on time management. That is impressive. So the other thing that we share when we are out there working on your behalf is we talk about the progression of all FIRST programs so that an elected official, a community leader, even a fellow high school teacher or a teacher that might live in a different part of the state, explain to them that there are four programs and give them a sample of a 2-minute video on FIRST Lego League, FIRST Tech Challenge, FIRST Robotics Competition. We have found these 3 videos to be pretty effective, mainly because they're not super long and they have an opportunity to hear from students, from mentors, from educators and parents. So feel free to use these. It also distinguishes the difference in terms of the skill set and leadership abilities across all 4 programs. And I was sharing this with a potential funder earlier this morning who had been aware of FIRST, but only had been aware of the FRC program, and at the end of the meeting really found value in understanding that FIRST was a larger footprint that affected kids at a much younger age, and that they were stepping stones for the high school program. So just wanted to share that with you. So remember, all of these advocacy, branding, and communications are interconnected. Between now and, Kelly, November 2nd, which is in a little over 2 weeks, can't believe that, we are going to put some templates up on our website, firstwa.org, that all teams are able to pull from. And it's not just the FRC teams, but FTC and FLL teams as well. Templates will include simple taglines on co-branding, along with a sample press release. US First, which, by the way, is going through some rebranding themselves. First is stepping away from US First and are going to brand themselves, which means we will brand ourselves as First. There will be a new URL for the website. The acronyms of Junior FLL, FLL, FTC, FRC, guess what, are going away. So there's going to be a little bit of retraining on that. But again, through a lot of research that First has done, and we have done some at Washington First, we recognize that these acronyms are very natural for people who are in the First community, but people outside who we are trying to engage in either starting up new teams or becoming mentors of teams or financially supporting teams, they cannot keep it straight between FLL and FTC and FRC and ABC and blah, blah, blah. So stay tuned on all of that. Now, we have concluded with time for questions. So everyone is on mute, but if you do have questions, please type your questions, and we are happy to answer them. And Sonic Squirrels and Spartronics are as well. So while you are typing, I will also just let you know, this is a quick infomercial. Our next Leadership Series workshop is going to be held on Tuesday, October 27th from 3:30 to 4:30, and our topic is on fundraising. We are also going to have a special guest talking about some scholarship opportunities for juniors and seniors relating to the Pacific Northwest. So you will want to make sure to capture that. And then the third leadership series is going to be on November 17th. And subject matter to be determined, because I am waiting to get confirmation of our guest speaker, but I think it will be a fabulous webinar to help teams think about mentorship, recruitment, and communication styles within your team to work and maximize the effectiveness. So, any questions?
Let's see if anybody asks any questions, but right now we're not seeing any.
We may not have any questions. So we have either overwhelmed you all, or you want to take this as a moment to process, which either way is perfectly fine with us. So just in interest of time, going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you, Sonic Squirrels, and thank you, Spartronics. The final thought is I want to let you know that there are 4 people, 2 are fabulous mentors, Kevin Hawkins from Spartronics and Lori Hiddle from Sonic Squirrels. They, along with Coach Chi and Jin from Glacier Peak, really worked with their teams of students in putting this together. So we are appreciative. best practices from 2 teams. One of the objectives of this leadership series is to really help share best practices from all teams so that the time that you have together can be maximized and you don't necessarily feel like you have to reinvent a wheel, because we have some fantastic talent within the FRC community, along with the FTC and FLL community, and certainly the budding talent in junior FLL. And we want to share this information so that we can share best practices so that every year your teams are feeling more comfortable in being part of the FIRST community and leverage your leadership opportunities for your students. So without further ado, thank you very much. Have a fantastic evening and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.